So for this painting study, we're going to be looking at textures. You will choose two different textures. You can choose them from nature or your home. This is the photo I'm going to be working with for the demonstration of a very old gnarly tree, which is something I love to paint and draw just because there's so much interest in it. And then there's some rocks and dead grass around it too. That's another good texture. So find at least two different textures to work with. It can be indoors or outdoors. Wood grain of a floor or a table is great. Old leather is fun to paint. Any kind of handmade paper that has a lot of texture in it, or fabrics are really good. Wool's great. And then for outside stuff, you can find tree bark, leaves, pine cones, acorns, anything that has some interesting textures and surface to it. So find two things that you would put into a painting together. And you don't have to do this, but I do recommend taking a photo of your textures together and then cropping them so you focus on the details. With things like this, you can kind of get lost in it because there's so much going on. So taking a photo and cropping it can really help you focus for this study. I've cropped it. You can see I've gone down to a really small version of this to just get that tree bark texture and some of the rocks on the bottom and the grass. It can become abstract. So if you're into photography, it could be like a macro photo that you're working with. It doesn't have to look like anything that exists in reality. It can become totally abstract. And that's another fun thing about this painting study is we're not really trying to make it look like the thing you're painting. We're just practicing the texture, so it can become something else entirely. You're going to paint at least two different textures, and we're going to learn the techniques of underpainting, glazing, and then an impasto. So these are really fun techniques that I think people get maybe overwhelmed by or intimidated by, but they're actually not that. They seem fancy, but they're not, and they're fun to work with. So we'll do a small study of these techniques so you can practice them on a small scale and then apply them to future paintings. So these are some practice versions of the texture study I did. I've used tape just to make some smaller areas on my canvas to practice. This is something that's good to do for creating studies. You know, you can do a lot on one canvas and then have it to refer to if you were doing, you know, something larger and you just want to practice one area of the painting that you want to get down. You know, these studies are great just to practice the techniques too. I was playing around with different colors and glazes on this one. And the impasto is this thick paint here. I was just experimenting. And then this one, I used everything that was left on my palette and kind of mushed it all together just to see what would happen. So it's always good to keep practicing. As you can see, you know, you wouldn't know what these were. They looked pretty abstract. You wouldn't really be able to tell what it was by looking at it. They're not really finished. They're studies. This is all about experimenting and practicing, and the final outcome of the painting is not as important as learning these techniques and skills, and also having fun with it. You know, we should be enjoying painting. We should be enjoying the art making process. It doesn't have to be too serious. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's no perfect way to do it. There's no magic formula. It's just about practicing and enjoying it and finding what works for you.